would like to start with reacting on something that David said about control. It is true, when it enters your mouth, you cannot control it anymore. You already taste it. And then I was thinking, well, your gustables, they're visible, so you can always choose to pick them up and put them in your mouth. But with smell, as soon as you smell it, you cannot escape from it anymore, and it's invisible. If there's an ambient smell somewhere, you cannot hide from it. You can look at a painting, indeed, and you can turn away, but this is not the case with the chemical senses, taste, and especially smell. Short introduction. I'm Caro Verbeek, and I did a master in olfactory art and a master in tactile art. And there is no such thing as a faculty of sensory art at the University of Amsterdam, so I could do whatever I wanted to. I just convinced my professors that this was a real subject, sensory art, and they agreed. And there seems to be a lot of multisensory art nowadays. And modern state of technology enhances this. We have touch screens, we have all kinds of things, artificial noses. But about 100 years ago, artists were already engaging all the senses. But since art critics and art historians neglected this fact because they were so focused on sight and hearing, they never really registered it. And since smells aren't easily registered, this component of history of art is lost. So what I'm trying to do is reconstruct a more sensory history of art, not only with words, but also with these senses. So try to find the smells that the surrealists and the futurists used and reconstruct them. And also make your audience smell and touch. I brought some smells. I usually work with an aroma jockey who spreads smells into the room. But we will do it in a different way. I will make some of you smell some things. Why? Of course, you should never study a sense in an isolated way. The context is very important and all senses influence each other. But still, I'm very intrigued by olfaction. Olfaction is another word for smell, because no matter what context, certain smells can evoke memories more than any other sense. Smells also determine a mood and the atmosphere of spaces. If it smelled like rotten eggs in here, no one of you would stay here. This would be a room that you don't want to be in. It's such a strong sense. I will talk about how futurists and surrealists use these senses, but first something about the hierarchy of the senses, which is an antiquity-based concept derived from Aristotle. And sight and hearing are number 1 and 2, and the other senses, smell, taste, and touch, were considered the lower senses. Now, what is the main difference between the first 2 and the second 3? Does anyone have any idea? Why are those called lower senses? Because they are senses of proximity. The first 2 are senses of distance. They allow you to contemplate, take distance from the object or the source that is producing that stimulus. With smell, taste, and touch, that is not possible. Yeah, that's where they're called the lower senses. It's not possible to contemplate because they are not linked to language, like sight and hearing. That's another thing that intrigues me about smell. Even if you recognize the scent, you cannot put your finger on it, you cannot label it. You know, I know this scent, I've smelled it before, but you cannot tell what it is. Because it's not linked to our lingual system the way sight and hearing is. There seems to have been what I call a sensory revolution in the history of art at the beginning of the 20th century. And I pinpointed some of the developments. And one of the reasons was a really strong reaction by the avant-garde to this 19th century idea of separating all disciplines, separating all senses, and this hierarchy of the senses. And the futurists tried to destroy this hierarchy of the senses. They were opposed to what the traditionalists were doing. Another thing is the desire to bring art and life closer together. In our daily lives, we don't just see and hear, we use all our senses. First idea of synesthesia, but I guess Chrétien van Kampen can say something more about this. And the Gesamtkunstwerk by Wagner, which included a design for opera, Festspielhaus in Bayreuth, in which all disciplines were equally important. All disciplines, but not all senses. He never included taste, touch, and smell. That's something that Kandinsky first started talking about. And Marinetti, the leader of the Futurists, was very much inspired by this idea of the Gesamtkunstwerk, but the way that Kandinsky described it. So, using all the senses, or addressing only one sense, but evoking several sensory stimuli. Like hearing, colors, but also, and this is always neglected, Kandinsky also talks about smells, the smells of colors. Scriabin was one such artist who tried to engage all the senses. He composed the Mysterium, a musical piece, which was supposed to be to take place in the Himalayas. And sunsets and sunrises were part of this play. And it included sounds, it included tactile stimuli, but also smells. I'm now in contact with a composer, Michael Yanet, from the United States, who did research into the smells that he envisioned. And he created smells for every single part of the Mysterium. And I wish he would perform it here. It would be so wonderful. And this is as he described the piece. There will not be a single spectator, all will be participants. The work requires special calculation. The cathedral in which it will take place will not be of one single type of stone, but will continually change with the atmosphere and motion of the Mysterium. This will be done with the aid of mists and lights, which will modify the architectural contours. One of the scents that he describes, because there's not much documentation left, is a scent from acrid to sweet. And that is exactly what we also did at this place. In one of the rooms, the second room, we spread the scent of smoke and of lemon right after you experienced an intensely sweet smell. And this in combination with the gustable of David Santo that is, can I say it? Very salty at first and then sweet. So this contrast is what he envisioned and what is also happening at this place. Scriabin was in touch with the futurists, and they must have influenced each other with this smell component, because Giacomo Balla wrote an entire manifest on smells, Arte degli Odori. It was found posthumously, so after his death, in his studio, and it had never been translated. I tried to translate it, 1916. And what is so interesting is that he doesn't just talk about pleasant smells, but also about stench. We always try to block stench, but it's part of the entire range of smells that are available. We are so afraid of, like David said, taste that we don't like, we spit it out. And we are so scared of stench, but you can use it in a very aesthetic way. In the 18th century, Kant and Hegel excluded scent and taste from the aesthetic debate. There was only one philosopher who included smell, which was Burke. And he said, you can use smell to evoke this feeling of the sublime. What is the sublime? It's something completely different from what how we understand the sublime nowadays. When we say sublime, we mean that it's fantastic. But in the 18th century, it meant that you were confronted with something that was so dangerous or painful that it emphasized, how can I say that? That you're alive, but only if there's enough distance from that danger. So think of paintings with waterfalls and deep reefs, but when you think of smells, you can think of stench. Giacomo Balla described the worst stenches to be aesthetic. Sulfuric acid, which we all know from rotten eggs. And what I also wonder, is there such thing as universal stench? No. It's something that we learned, that is linked to our culture. There's a contemporary artist who works with what we usually consider as stench, sizzle tolas. Has any one of you experienced this? It was in Amsterdam a year ago. There's someone over here. Sizzle tolas asked people or men all around the world that suffer from panic attacks if they could collect their sweat and send it to her overnight, immediately. I see your face like, ooh. And then she analyzed it and tried to reproduce it synthetically. And she mixed it with paint, put it on a wall. So very clinical. She didn't say what you were actually smelling. All the men are reduced to numbers. And what happens? People are not afraid of this smell anymore. I went here at Mediamatic and I stopped people and I asked them, okay, can you please smell these walls and tell me what you smell and how you feel about them? And they said, oh, this one's good. It's very spicy. Oh, and this one's more like lemon. And then I told them, well, you're actually smelling the armpits of men suffering from anxiety attacks. And then they were, oh my God. It says something about how we are conditioned. This taboo on body odor is fairly new. It's only 150 years old. It's something that we learn. The same counts for, I did this experiment once at the Rijksmuseum, where I work. Smelly feet and cheese are very similar. The smell is actually produced by the same bacteria. I went to the Rijksmuseum to a very nice still life with cheese. And with me I had a synthetic a substance of smelly feet made by olfactory artist Peter de Kupere. And I asked the crowd that was gathering, okay, I have something really nice here for you. It's a cheese, so that you can experience this painting better. Can you please tell me what kind of cheese this is? And I said, inhale deeply. So I made them smell it. And they said, oh, yes, I think it's an old cheese. I think it's Goudse kaas. No, it's this kind of cheese. And when I told them, well, actually, it's smelly feet, they were disgusted. It's only context. And this is also scientifically proven. If you put people in one of those tubes, I don't know what it's called in English. Can you help me? In hospitals.
MRI scan.
Yeah, with your entire body. And you add, this was actually done, the smell of feet or cheese, and you tell people that it's cheese. You can see all the areas of pleasure lighting up, and when you tell them it's smelly feet, you can see the areas of disgust lighting up. It's intriguing. Sissel Tolaas told me that there was even one person who kept coming back to smell one of the men because she fell in love with the scent. It is important to finding your partner. Smell is really important when it comes to that. Last part is about surrealist exhibition design. Not just us with displays, but also the surrealists were already engaging all the senses. And in each one of these exhibitions, all the, 5 senses, no more, 6, were evoked. And I would like to start with the 1938 International Surrealist Exhibition. You can see these coal bags hanging from the ceiling. This is an installation by Marcel Duchamp. André Breton asked Duchamp to design the exhibition as an installation. There were paintings on the wall, really traditional, but he also made a very modern installation. And he asked the poet Perret to include an olfactory dimension. Perret had lived in Brazil, and he decided to roast coffee beans. So the entire space smelled of coffee, which is a smell you don't associate with the clinical gallery. Because what do you think of when you smell coffee? What's the context of drinking coffee? It's sorry? A bar, yeah, or being at home, coziness, maybe working, but not going to an exhibition. So this atmosphere was very important for the surrealists. Break away from the lingual system into a more sensory system. They were inspired by Rimbaud, the poet. But I think this smell of coffee had a meaning. It's 1938. This is the year the surrealists, the Brazilian surrealists, entered the international group of surrealism. I actually think this coffee is an olfactory symbol, a volatile symbol. Coffee is it's a national scent for Brazilians. And then the 1942 exhibition, this is my favorite, because it's also about proprioception. Again, Marcel Duchamp designed this exhibition. 16 Miles of String is the name of this work, which forces you to move in a very strange way in a gallery. And especially in these days, if you would go to an opening of an exhibition, as a woman you would wear a dress, high heels, and act very static. And next, of course, you cannot know if you don't smell it. Can you tell me what this reminds you of? Can you say it a bit louder?
Wet soil, outdoor rain.
Wet soil and outdoor rain. Okay. Anyone else? A forest, okay. Pine tree forest. Sorry? Furniture, yeah. That's so interesting about this scent. It both evokes feelings of being outdoors and indoors because we use it for furniture and to fight moths. So our grandmother's closet smells like this. It evokes. My experience is that this scent evokes a lot of memories to a lot of people. And then the last slide. No? Yes. This was the last Surrealist exhibition, held in 1959. It was about eros, erotics. And in the first room, you could see like a breathing ceiling. It was done by Duchamp again, and you could hear the moaning sounds of women having orgasms. And in this room, this hole over here, you would smell a perfume. And I never knew which perfume. No art historian ever mentioned it. I was so glad that I decided to read a book from a perfume critic instead of an art historian, because he could tell me which scent was used, and I brought it with me. It's so funny how we tend to think that a visual representation is actually reality. This picture says nothing about what visitors sensed, what they felt. There was such a strong smell in this exhibition. Having a bit of difficulty opening the, yeah, okay. Then I would like to ask Chris, how do you experience this perfume, this smell?
Well, we're trying to identify it with a flower. Like what it smells like something. It's always about what it smells like.
Yeah, very true. It's always about it smells like, because we have no language for smells. But it doesn't contain any flowers. This is a so-called sex perfume. It was the first sex perfume. It contains a lot of indole. You know that people sometimes say, yeah, they use shit and urine in perfumes. That's not true, but they do use indole. And indole is present in jasmine, but also in our feces. Yeah, so some perfumes do smell like shit in their base note. It's indole. And somehow it's considered very sexy if you cover it with citrus and other notes. Otherwise you would just be scared. You would say, oh no, I don't like this. But somehow, yeah, we do. I would like to thank you for your attention, and I hope to see you at this place